when you are not talking, because it makes. Thank you.
How do I? Oh yes, I see. I can mute or unmute the mic. Very good. Very good. Okay. I've had to put a suit on for the first time this week for 6 months, so that's getting used to it again. I didn't go as far as a tie. I did bring a tie yesterday, but as my Director General wasn't wearing one, I thought I would do without as well. I'll just switch my phone off.
And another question, have we the possibility to see who is online? Do we have to see the participants in the audience possibility?
Yes, once the live session is live, you will see the attendee list.
Great.
Right now, they are into a waiting room.
Yeah, super. Thank
68,
you.
amazing. Fantastic. 67. Okay, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, I'm glad it's got some interest, because I think it's a great subject. Okay, 876. So, good afternoon to everybody who's here. I think we have 70 odd people. That's really great news. And Synergies, innovative solutions. How do we get the great ideas that we have, the innovative ideas that we have, financed and deployed? And there we have to look for new ideas. We have to be a little bit innovative ourselves, because in our society, we have a big public sector, but we also have a big private sector. We have a lot of very strong companies in Europe and around the world. And we have to see how we can involve the private sector, the banking sector, venture capital, philanthropic sector a little bit as well. And sometimes that can be a bit difficult for public officials and academics. We're very much, perhaps very nervous of the private sector and banks and so on. But we have to involve them, and we need that if we're really going to get the solutions to the challenges that we're facing. So I've got 3 people on the panel with experience in this whole area. First of all, facing the challenge of rolling out research by working with the private sector and other funding sources. People who understand that the needs are too great for pure public funding to be able to resolve if we're going to get sustainability. In fact, all 3 of them work in the area of energy technology, clean technology, which is a coincidence, actually, and a very happy coincidence, I think, because this isn't actually a session about energy. It's a session about synergies, but it's used energy as a really great example. It's a session on innovative and new ways to support research innovation, and how we get towards deployment. So we have Anne Mettler, who is a former colleague at the Commission, was in charge of the policy center of Jean-Claude Juncker, and is now at Gates Ventures. Gates, that's Bill Gates Ventures. And she has going to give us a philanthropic view of how things are going in this clean tech. We have Philippe Mengal, who is a director of the Bio-Based Industries Joint Undertaking. It's a public-private partnership. And I know from talking to Philippe that he saw from day one that research was never going to be efficient to build up the bioeconomy, to build up the bio industry. He had to go out and try and create a market, and looking at the supply and the demand side. So that was really why he's got some very great insight. And also Bart Beerboik, who is from the Hydrogen Fuel Cells Joint Undertaking. I think a similar sort of thing to the BBI, creating a market from scratch. The hydrogen market, very, very interesting, and a sort of model, a lot of interest in that sort of thing. Just on a housekeeping thing, you can please use the question and answer function if you have questions, and certainly we'll try and look to those afterwards. I think the chat function has probably been disabled, so you can't use it. Anyway, that's setting the tone. Anne, please tell us how it looks from your side of things.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. And really, I'm delighted to join such a timely discussion. I essentially just want to make 3 quick points. Firstly, it's well known, but Europe must do better, really, in getting what is, by all accounts, world-class research out of the labs and into an environment where we can validate the technology, where we can demonstrate the technology, and then ultimately scale up and really get the technology out there. We oftentimes think of it as discovery, demonstration, and adoption. So this will be critical. You already mentioned clean tech innovation, but this is critical for our ambition to reach climate neutrality by 2050. We know that almost half of the emission reductions that are required to reach net zero by mid-century actually rely on technologies that are not yet commercialized. So they may exist, but have not yet been commercialized. And here, let me actually sort of share a cautionary tale. You may know that in my past life, I dealt a lot with digital technologies. So it's really about digital tech. We know that a lot of the good research in digital tech actually came out of Europe, but was never commercialized here, was commercialized elsewhere. But is that what we really want? Is that that we only do the research and the discovery and we ultimately let others reap the benefits? And that's why we really need to study and understand the entire innovation value chain, not only the R&D, but also and perhaps especially the early deployment, the demonstration, and the scale-up phases. Because let's be clear, invention is not innovation. And even the best research will have limited impact if the solutions proposed are not adopted and diffused. So which brings me to my second point. The trajectory of climate and clean tech is not really the same as what we see in digital or biotech. So the innovation cycles, if you look, for example, at wind and solar, the innovation cycles tend to be quite long, around 25 years, which is frankly time we don't have in the face of the climate emergency. So we really need to figure out how to compress, how to accelerate that innovation cycle. And for that, we need patient capital and risk-tolerant capital, and lots of it. So the early validation and demonstration phase in clean tech is very long, it's risky, and it's expensive. So significant amounts of public investment will be needed, but we all know that it's not enough. So we need different sources of capital to align at different stages of development for clean technologies. And let me say that we are convinced that philanthropic and non-dilutive grant funding must become a more central part of this debate. And for public authorities, I think they will need to allocate significantly more on tech transfer and knowledge transfer out of the labs and into the real economy. So my third and final point is what I believe actually to be an excellent case study of what we're discussing here today, and it's called Breakthrough Energy Ventures Europe. Breakthrough Energy, some of you may know, is an organization that was founded by Bill Gates to accelerate the transition to net zero emissions. In 2018, Breakthrough Energy Ventures Europe was created as really a first of its kind pilot between the European Commission and Breakthrough Energy Ventures. And as part of that, 100 million fund was created, with 50 million coming from the European Commission and the EIB, the European Investment Bank, and 50 million from Breakthrough Energy Ventures. So this money is invested in early stage technology companies which have the potential to significantly reduce CO2 emissions. And I remember I was still working at the Commission at the time when Breakthrough Energy Ventures Europe was concluded. And let me say that for me, already back then, this was sort of a new generation of public-private partnership, which really seeks to strip out, I think, a lot of the heaviness and the bureaucracy, and instead focus on scouting for the best startups and the most promising technologies. And that's in many ways breakthrough public policy. And I believe that we need more of it. So hopefully Breakthrough Energy Ventures Europe can be a source of inspiration. So, Paul, let me conclude by saying that it's clear that we're really on the cusp of a new technology revolution, the clean tech revolution. And like Europe, it's obvious many other places in the world are really waking up to the enormous potential to develop cleaner solutions. And just yesterday, for instance, China vowed to become carbon neutral by 2016. So this in many ways, I think of it as a race to the top, a race for better and for cleaner technologies and really deep decarbonization across our economy. So we will only succeed in this race to the top if we better leverage the synergies between public and private and between invention and innovation, because they're not the same thing. And I hope I kicked us off today with a lot of food for thought, and I very much look forward to what the others have to say. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to contribute.
Thank you very much, Anne. No, you said that much better than I could, that's for sure. Bart Bierbuch, so when I listen to Anne, I mean, these were many of the things that I discussed with you when I came to see you a little while ago. Please tell us something about it, and you've got some good examples, I think, as well to show us.
Exactly, and thank you very much, Paul, also for offering this opportunity to explain what we are doing. But also, I fully agree with Anne, because we have to work together in a public-private partnership in order to accelerate the putting those new technologies in the field and to the benefit of the European citizens. And that is exactly what we in the Fuel Cells and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking are doing in our field, of course. So just for the people who are listening, a little bit who we are. So first of all, we are a public-private partnerships, and we have two private partners, which is on one hand, the Hydrogen Europe industry, which is around about more than 150 people or companies, but very important to say that 50% of them are SMEs, and they need to be helped. And through such a partnership for them, for the SMEs, this is a unique opportunity to work together, because they also often meet big companies, huge companies, which then invest in those small companies. So it's a very nice platform also there for industry to invest in each other. On the other hand, we have another private partner, which is a very important partner, is a research grouping, around 80 members, across all over Europe represented. And then in the middle, of course, we have the Commission. We're working on energy, transport, and so on, and cross-cutting. Most important, we have now so far done 263 projects for 985 million euro taxpayers' money. But since this is a public-private partnership, we have been able to leverage the money for 1 to 1 euro, 1 and 1 euro, because together we invested now 2 billion euro publicly and privately. And so in the next slide, I would like to show you why we invest so much publicly, but also privately. It's because last year we have made a hydrogen roadmap for Europe, and there you can see that by 2050, this technology can make an annual revenues of 820 billion euro and create 5.4 million jobs. So there is a lot of interest there from also the industry to make money. And of course, at the same time, contribute to the climate, because we will reduce 560 million tons annually. Then how do we do that? How do we get it in the field? And we came up with first ideas, making hydrogen territory, because you need the people. You need really the people on the ground that they want to change. And to make that change, we make kind of hydrogen territory together with local authorities, regional authorities, of course with our funding, but our funding was not enough. And then also with some UK, in this case, funding. So bringing all those funds together, we could make very nice projects. And also this territory got several projects. So it all builds together to, and you concentrate everything together in one area to really demonstrate that it worked. And I have to say that last year, even I gave an award to the whole, as a success story, to the society of the Orkney Islands, really to the people of the Orkney Islands, because they lived it, and they are our best ambassadors. But that was still compared to, that was still small, and we wanted to go higher. We wanted to have a bigger impact as well. And that's where we came to the idea of a hydrogen valley. I mean, we all know the US has the Silicon Valley, so we have our hydrogen valley. And in the hydrogen valley, we really show this sectoral integration, where we have transport, energy, storage, all this together in one big demonstration. And the name of the project is Heaven. So we can imagine what we're creating there. It's basically a heaven of zero emission technology demonstrated by the people and for the people. And you see that in this chart also, you can see that in the Northern Netherlands, this is a part of the whole decarbonization strategy of the Netherlands using hydrogen. So that's how we contribute to them. But then recently, last week, our president, Ursula von der Leyen, she said in the State of the Union, she wants that the next generation EU will create more European hydrogen valleys across Europe, not only in the northern part of the Netherlands, but in many parts of Europe. And at some point, we will need to connect all those hydrogen valleys through infrastructures as well. And how we will do that, because this goes beyond our joint undertaking. I mean, we will have to work together with many other partnerships, just clean aviation, waterborne, and so on. But also we will have to work together with EC instruments like Connecting Europe Facility, Innovation Fund, and initiatives from the European Commission, like the Clean Hydrogen Alliance, the IPCEIs, the Important Projects for Common European Interest. So many activities are now going on. And the challenge for us will be, how do we align all those initiatives? How do we work together? How do we avoid bureaucratic overlap? And it's not an easy thing, I can tell you. Before, we were doing just innovation R&I projects. Now we have to go to big scale commercialization. We need to do it with many, many people, and this will be our challenge. That's all from my side. We have a European Hydrogen Week from the 23rd to the 27th of November, if you're interested to know more. Thank you. Back to Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bart. I mean, I think many of the things that Anne was saying, you're trying to do. You got from discovery, you've got to demonstration. Now we need to move to adoption, and we can do so much in the public sector, but now we need to think about that. But that's great. I mean, I'm really excited about these hydrogen valleys. Dan Nika, the rapporteur on Horizon Europe in the Parliament, was at the opening session yesterday talking about how important hydrogen is. So I think you're really in the right market. Philippe, you have, not the same story, but the similar challenges, the similar approaches. Tell us about some of the things that you've been doing in the bio industry area, please.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for the invitation to share indeed our experience, in particular, explain one of our initiative, the BBIJU Synergy label. First of all, it's good to be the third speaker because I don't need to repeat the very strong messages that were already addressed. And Bart is a colleague because he's also the director of a joint undertaking, hydrogen. From my side is to deploy the bio-based industry. And first, I will say a few words about the BBIJU, and this in order to contextualize a bit why establishing synergies at different levels is absolutely essential for a joint undertaking. So as Bart explained, we are also a public-private partnership between the European Commission and the bio-based industry sector, represented by an organization called BIG, the Bio-Based Industry Consortium. And on the same model of FCH, we have a common budget, 3.7 billion euro, to fund a research and innovation program in order to deploy a sustainable bio-based industry in Europe. You said very nice words for me, Paul, at the beginning. But fortunately for me, the sector was already quite established, I would say, the bio-based industry sector. You know, today in Europe, it waits for 750 billion euro of turnover and 3.6 million jobs. But very few people know this sector. It's not really well identified, the sector. And for a main reason is that it is very fragmented. It remains very fragmented, and investment in this sector are absolutely huge and risky. So coming back to the program, in order to implement this program, the bio-based industry sector developed a strategic innovation and research agenda with a wide consultation, a lot of synergies, and this agenda, prior to be implemented by the BBI, is approved by the European Commission. So as you understand, the nature of a joint undertaking makes synergies with industry, regions, and other sources of funding absolutely essential, as Bart just explained. From our side in BBI, before launching the BBI Synergy label, first of all, we explored the possibility to use the Seal of Excellence label that was already existing, simply because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. For different reasons, it didn't fit with our purpose, and we had to develop specifically our Synergy label, and we started that 2 years ago. It is a new pilot initiative launched last year that recognized the value and excellence of innovation actions. Proposals submitted to BBI-JU calls qualified above the quality threshold, but that couldn't receive funding due to budget limitation, you know, the mechanism we have. Maybe a first question, why did we focus only on innovation action, demonstration project, and flagship project? This for two main reasons. The first reason is that the localization of the investment is clear. So the location of the main investor is clear as well and can be easily linked with available regional funding. The second reason for focusing only on demonstration as flagship is that those type of action are very close to the market. So the expected socioeconomic and environmental impact is really maximized. So the BBI-JU Synergy label recognizes the value and excellence of proposal and supports the search for alternative funding provided by EU funding organization, EU member states and regions, and any other possible funding organization. The role of the BBI-JU in this Synergy label is to recognize the value and excellence of the proposal and support the search for alternative funding. The role will, of course, cover the award of the label, the dissemination of the initiative, and the guidance toward the awarded proposal, the guidance towards the main contacts in the different funding organizations. So, in fact, for those funding organizations, the BBI will act a bit like a first filter for the best proposal, but also the role of guidance. And that's particularly true for small and medium organizations that very often are a bit lost in the wide spectrum of possibility. So dissemination and communication activities will ensure that EU funding organization, as well as member state and region, are well informed about this BBI-JU Synergy label. Currently, we are working with different organizations in order to ensure this recognition. And through the Synergy label, we will provide the proposal to different organizations like the European Fund for Strategic Investment, the European Structural Investment Fund, ESIF, and thematic investment platform, and also instrument offered at a regional and national level. In this context, in the last months, we have signed memorandum of understanding with the EIB, with the EBRD, and with the European Circular Bioeconomy Fund. So a fund really dedicated to the bioeconomy. And they are very complementary, those funds. EBRD, of course, is restricted to some specific territories, which is not the case for EIB. EIB offer loans, which means the project need to be bankable. So it means that it's more for the deployment phase or the replication of flagship. With regard ECBF, their intervention is at the level of equity and mezzanine, which means that they can the area of intervention is also at demonstration and flagship level. To conclude, as we discussed earlier, Paul, we learned a lot of lessons about that, and there is really an important aspect in this synergy label is to manage expectation and to be sure we can really do this role of guidance. And one of the lessons we learned that we intend to implement for CBE, Circular Bio-Based Europe, the possible successor of the BBI JU for the next framework program, is that we will add in the program a deployment group. One of the role of this deployment role will really to have the control of this whole initiative to really maximize the support and identify possible other organizations that could be interested by our synergy label. So the first BBI synergy label was awarded exactly 1 year ago during the R&I Day last year. And I really invite you to join the online second Synergy Label Award ceremony. As you can see in the screen, that will be on the 6th October in the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philippe. I'm just having a look at down some of the questions, and I think the questions are really focusing on what's the balance of our program, in fact. And when I joined this Directorate General several years ago, we were still thinking about FP6, which was very much focused on academia, projects in academia. As we moved into FP7, we started to bring in the small business support. As we moved forward again, we started to make the public-private partnerships. And now as we come into Horizon Europe, we have the European Innovation Council, which I think will be one of the answers to the question of George. This is hopefully the flexible scheme that you will be looking for. It won't be huge consortia, it's individual small businesses with great ideas that we want to support. We're now in the question, as we look at the money that we have for the future, what is the balance between academic research through the European Research Council, for example, and the work that we're doing with consortia, linking private and public sector, linking researchers and industry? That's really the question we're having on the balance. Now, I don't know whether we've got that balance right, but you will have seen probably with the budget things that we have about 17 or 18% of the money, maybe 25% in total of what you call academic research, a little bit less than that for European Innovation Council small businesses, and then this chunk in the middle, 57-58%, which will be for the consortia, for really the work, the part where we're trying to link together research and industry. Anne, you've heard the colleagues now. What do you think? Do you think we're on the right route with these public-private partnerships? How do you see the development? Because when we were talking together, you were saying that you were very much in favour of this when you were in the Commission. Do you think we're on the right route?
Broadly speaking, yes. At least we have recognized what some of the key challenges are. I think that's always a very good start. I mean, again, going back a little bit to my previous experience, what I always found very challenging is sort of to connect the dots, right? I mean, because there's a lot of good sort of pilot projects, and whenever we looked into anything, something good was happening in Europe. There was always a best practice. The problem was it didn't scale. It was just sort of an isolated good project, but it didn't scale for a variety of reasons, some of which may have nothing to do with research or funding. And I think here we maybe need to also bring this debate to some of the larger framework conditions, especially in energy. It continues to be very difficult to do cross-border projects. So even though nominally we have a single market, in practice it doesn't always work so well. So I think we need to also bring some of these issues into the debate. If I had one piece of advice beyond sort of connecting the dots, is also for the Commission to look a little bit deeper into sort of the demand pull. What I'm finding is very difficult in energy is so many of the products are not really distinctive. So cement that is produced with zero carbon is not, really that different from cement that has a very high carbon footprint. and or electricity, broadly speaking, is electricity is very dim. As a consumer, you can't really distinguish. So to think about, how do we take these technologies that do exist and have a smaller carbon footprint or no carbon footprint and make them price competitive with the more polluting alternatives? This is where I would spend a lot of time if I was still at the Commission, because without that, just the technology push without the demand pull will be very difficult. So I would spend a lot of time on that. I know we have the carbon contracts for difference. That is really good. But nonetheless, that needs to scale now as well. So, this is one of the issues I wanted to bring in, because it's also for, public policy to incentivize the private sector and consumers to then go for these low carbon, low emission options. And here I think we need to think more creatively about how that can be done.
Absolutely, thank you. A question from Alan Haig that some of you will have seen about the instruments. Alan is a colleague who works at the INEA executive agency and has done a lot of work himself to try to bring together different commission programs. Very interesting to talk to him on the different things. And so, but I think that's a very fair point, Alan. And perhaps that's one thing that we have to make an effort. Perhaps I have to make an effort in my job to try and see how can we fight the fragmentation? How can we improve that? A number of initiatives being done, but perhaps not everything. There was a question from Arthur Santos. Can a local authority be project partners? Now, I know Bart and Philippe, you've both tried to bring in local authorities a little bit. Maybe Bart, could you just give us a couple of minutes? How are you involving local authorities in this work?
It's very easy, actually, because how we started with that was back in 2016. We launched the Cities and Regions initiative, and because we knew that we cannot scale up this technology if we do not have governors, local mayors embarking in this pathway. And so we wrote to all of them and we said, look, sign up an MOU with us and we will work together with you. We will teach you what are this technology, what can be done, where are we, and so on, and help your roadmap to make your roadmap. We were very surprised. We had more than 90 cities and regions signing up with us. That led, and then we had 1 year, we worked with them, 1 year with them, and we asked to them, who wants to really go all the way? Really, who wants to be a champion in hydrogen? And that's how we came to the hydrogen valleys at the end. And then we had a couple of regions really who would like to do that. And then we made a call for proposals. And what we wrote there is that the coordinator has to be a region. The region has to coordinate the call. And so, and we had several proposals, and actually quite successful now. So that's how we got the regions in, or public authorities. And actually in that, like in the hydrogen valleys, there are multiple public authorities actually in that same call. So that it's actually not so difficult. We did it mainly by obliging them to participate.
Obligations, always a good thing. Philippe, what about you at the regions? I know you've done a lot of work there. Can't hear you, Philippe. Philippe, can't hear you. Have to turn. Yeah.
Voilà, much better. Yes, I was saying that we have been working with our two founding partners. With the Commission, mainly what has been done is to promote the bioeconomy strategy. You know that 1 year ago, an updated bioeconomy strategy for Europe has been published. That's very important, but because bioeconomy is everywhere, north to south, west to east, but bioeconomy is very specific. A bioeconomy strategy in Sweden is totally different than in Italy, and in Italy, between the north and the south is different. So a lot of work has been done there to promote the development of regional bioeconomy strategy, where BBI then can come as one of the instruments that can be part of it. And one aspect was to promote it and to try to promote the membership in the private organization. What we did with the private organization, it's two things. First of all, in the countries where we are not present enough, they did a specific study analyzing the potential of bioeconomy based on existing companies, excellence in some university research center, and more importantly, what is the potential of feedstock, the potential of biomass, because again, in the north it will be more about wood, completely different in the south, and in Central Europe there is also a lot about side stream from the agro-food industry. So looking at the potential enable also to motivate the region. And another initiative has been to filter the region that had in their smart specialization strategy the bioeconomy, and they were invited to link that with the study of the potential to show how attractive they can be. And in some cases, the BBI signed a memorandum of understanding with some of those regions. I was explaining yesterday the case of Poland, where there, hand in hand, we promote the program. And now, after 2-3 years, we see really a huge impact on that in the participation in the program. So these are the main action that we have been undertaking.
Thank you very much. No, I used to work in the agriculture sector, so I'm very interested in what BBI can do in regions, because it's a great added value for rural areas and for farmers as well. There's a question from Peter Mogiorosi about, I don't want to go into individual projects, Peter, but I can assure you that the size of projects, the size of consortium is something that we go through continuously to try to think about what's best. Yes, in some ways you want more collaboration, bigger projects, but I totally understand that sometimes it can be very difficult to manage. It's not something that will go away. I mean, I think we are all thinking about that and finding the best ways that we can do it. Yesterday I was listening to many things on the missions, and when you look at the missions to create carbon neutral cities and to repair our oceans and to improve soil, there are some research issues, but a lot of them are more regulatory issues. Are you seeing that in the work that you're doing, Anne, that you sort of come quickly up to the point that it's not so much about the technology, in fact, it's more about the political will to exploit these technologies?
Yes, I think that is definitely an issue. By the way, not just pertaining to regulation. I was speaking to someone the other day, and we spoke about the trajectory of offshore wind in Europe, which, you know, is by all accounts is actually a European success story. And when they examined what is the challenge of really getting offshore wind to scale, it wasn't about the technology per se. It was actually about the financing, which was disproportionately expensive because at that point it was seen as disproportionately risky. So what was done was to reduce the risk premium, and as subsequently offshore wind has really taken off. So I think one needs to look technology by technology. What is the bottleneck? What is the issue? Since we're all speaking here, particularly around energy issues, I will say that this is an area that is very heavily regulated. And I think here's sort of a check of what is really standing in the way, perhaps, to reaching carbon or climate neutrality would be necessary. Again, going back and comparing to digital tech, part of the reason why all of that scaled so quickly was because it was in an entirely new area where there was no regulation. And we do know that a lot of risk has subsequently materialized because a lot of products were thrown on the market that frankly weren't really risk-proof. But nonetheless, I think what I see now in comparison to energy is that you know, if we really want to get serious about these clean technologies, we do need sort of a look at the regulations that underpin them, need to see are they still fit for purpose. I mean, you know that the Dutch, for instance, did their Green Deal. So they created sort of a regulatory sandbox to see what is possible, you know, what works, what doesn't. So, you know, we need to look at these issues. And again, coming back to the financing issue, let me perhaps say, because you said that our venture was mostly about philanthropic, invest or philanthropic spending. That is correct. A lot of it is, but we also have venture funds because oftentimes, depending on where the technology is, because technologies are in different levels of maturity. Some of them are very early stage and they might be really risky. Then you might need more sort of philanthropic or sort of the risk tolerant patient capital that I was talking about. But other technologies may be well advanced and they're really ready to scale. There, you might need an investment fund where you do have, the return on investment. So I don't think we can just look at technologies as something homogeneous. We need to understand what is the maturity level of these technologies. Then we need a regulatory check of what is needed. We need what is the financing that is needed. So we do need a little bit more differentialization, if I can say that, because sometimes we talk just about technology as if all technologies are the same, and that's just not the case. So I would, from a public policy perspective, these would be some of the issues that I would be looking at.
No, I think that's right. And I think one of the things that I've certainly seen a lot more interest in, a lot more movement towards is these financial instruments. And I think that can be quite a big difference compared to grants, that you actually grant an interest rate subsidy, or even now with the EIC, they want to take shares in companies. And this is a way that you can provide much more assistance, because interest rate subsidy is obviously much cheaper than a grant. But also you're moving people always thinking about the commercialization of these products. In answer to Perita Lindholm, yeah, I mean, local and regional actors. So in the public-private partnerships, this is a particular area. You've heard from the two colleagues about how they're trying to involve local authorities. When we're talking about the co-funded or the co-program partnerships, these are co-funded between member states or regions and the Commission, and it's obviously absolutely important. ERDF funding, it's certainly our aim. I don't know if it's finally agreed yet, but certainly our aim is that ERDF funding can be used for co-funding in the European partnerships, which will be a big help. We've even started to have questions now, which we're just checking. The new RRF, I forget what it's called now, but anyway, the new Next Generation EU instrument and the money that we have available. If a country decides that it would be served well by boosting the money it puts into one of our partnerships, could they do it? And that's exactly our answer would be obviously yes. I mean, this is a great thing, but we're just checking on the legal situation of that. So that's absolutely there. And then you can see Simon Pickard. Yeah, okay, very interesting question. Are we considering how to bring corporate venturing to the table? Yeah, I mean, this was the European Innovation Council was, I think, particularly our idea on this. It's been trialed. I think it's had a certain number of success. It's certainly very, very popular, which really makes me think that there are a whole load of European companies out there looking for possibilities, looking for the chances to stay in Europe and hopefully to grow in Europe. Now, Anne, I know, has to go in a few minutes because she's talking at the Mission Innovation Conference about that. So, but thank you very, very much, Anne, for that. That's really very inspiring. And as me and my colleague Max and Sylvie, we start to go through our work of developing these synergies, perhaps we can come back to you to talk a little bit more about how we can try and reduce this fragmentation. Yes, please.
Before I leave, and since you mentioned corporate ventures, I think this is necessary. I think the EIC is absolutely a step in the right direction. And what corporate venture brings is not just money. It's also connections, experience, mentorship. So I really think, we need more of this. And going back to my previous job, we know that part of the good experience we had with the Juncker Fund, or the European Fund for Strategic Investments, was, yes, it crowded in private capital, but it also, brought in a lot of expertise, because companies do not tend to invest in ventures that they don't think will ultimately be successful. And I think building more of this and really bringing the two sectors together to what I just described as sort of a new generation of public-private partnership, that is very much needed, and we are fully on board. So indeed, I need to now sign off to the Mission Innovation Ministerial, but thank you so much for inviting me, and it was a great discussion, and good luck and for the remainder of the session and the conference. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, can I also?
Please come in. Yes.
Yeah, I fully agree what also Anne said. So what we did last year in last November, it was the first time that we organized a venture capitalist event in Rotterdam, where basically we teamed up with a company who brought around 100 venture capitalists together. And we selected a number of our SMEs from which we thought that their product is almost ready now for scaling up. And actually, they made we give them some training for pitching together with RTD. We had such a pitching training company, and then they made this pitching last year, and that was quite successful. Also, EIB was there, and this was a way to attract also, let's say, venture capitalist money into our companies. We will do that again now in this Hydrogen Week. We will have again such a session because it works fine. And I think what is very important is that JUs can do that, such kind of activity, because we are working together with industry research, but also and the Commission. And I think the only thing I would like to express here as well is JUs should not be put only in the corner of research, because sometimes when I hear people, especially at the Commission, no, you're doing R&I activity. I believe we should stop with thinking like that, and we should really move into JUs working with the industry to make a difference, to make sure that the things are successfully put it in the field and people benefit from this. This should be the task of the JUs and not too much focusing on the R&I. I know that's still some thinking that needs to move, but I feel some positive involvement in that.
I do too. Philippe.
If I may, Paul, of course, I fully agree with Bart. We discuss that every week, that the deployment aspect is absolutely essential. So funding collaborative research in our sector is key because it enables to structure the sector and organize the value chain. Investing in high TRL is essential because, as already said, we saw in the past that we were excellent in developing science and technologies, and we had companies in Europe leader in the biotech industry, but investing outside Europe for different reasons. That's also why, as just said, corporate VC are also essential. If I look at the example of the BBI, we have today in our portfolio 10 flagship biorefineries funded by the program. All of them, they receive 215 million euro funding from BBI, but the private sector invests 1.3 billion euros. So you see the leverage effect. And those flagship, they are the first of the kind, meaning that they have been selected for the high capacity of replication. No need to tell you that we will need billions of investment there. And there it's not the role of the joint undertaking, but we have to accompany that for the deployment. And again, their corporate VC are essential. If I may add also something, because we talk a lot about high TRL deployment. That's true that joint undertaking are industry driven, but I can say that the role of university and research center is also essential. Bart talked about the high level of SME participation. In BBI, is 40% of the funding that goes to SME. So, sorry, 40% of the participation is SME, but 30% of the participation is university and research center, but not necessarily the same department in university that participate to the program. And for them, it's a huge opportunity to establish collaboration with the private sector. So that's also there that joint undertaking really play a key role. So indeed, industry driven, but not only for the industry.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all that. And you need to go beyond research. I mean, yes, we need research, but we need to do a lot more. So Simon Picard, maybe that answers some of your questions. We are trying to make links with venture capital. We're trying more of these pitching events, also through the European Innovation Council. Under former Commissioner Carlos Moedas, we tried to create our own venture capital fund and or work with venture capital to inject some money into a particular program. It didn't really work too well that at the time, but I think there's a lot of possibilities there. And then somebody else, I saw a question that I was going to answer. Yes, Maisal Nade. You can see that public-private partnerships are really looking for higher TRL levels, and we're hoping that the next generation EU money that we have, 5.4 billion that we will have available in the next 3 years, that's also a chunk of that will certainly be looking at more demonstration projects, higher TRL. That's certainly our aim for that. So the additional money that we get to face up to the recovery, we want to use to get to higher TRL levels, pushing on beyond the research to try and really do something different from that. I think I had another question there. I see Marinus Coppens. Yeah, absolutely. There's a role for public investments in research and innovation. We do see market failure. Both Bart and Philippe know that in their area, they're facing up to huge multinational companies who are supporting oil and gas and coal and things like that. And we need to have the public funding to give an opportunity to the hydrogen industry and the bio-based industry to actually be able to compete. But we can only do that to a certain point. We need to move it on. We need to move it on into the private sector at some point. And there we are, the word again, de-risk. How do we de-risk those projects? Philippe or Barb, what do you think? Are we de-risking enough? Can we de-risk more as we go through into the next joint undertakings?
Well, I mean, de-risking is, of course, why we are here. I mean, basically, if we put some money, it's actually to take a part of the risk on us, on the society. However, de-risking is not only about money. It's also about regulations. I mean, we need to make sure that also policymakers put in the right regulation, or gives a certain certainty that a regulation will stay there for the next 5 or 10 years. And that's also de-risking. And often we easily tend to look to the money, but it's not all about the money. Many times business cases might work if you have the proper framework. And that would be my main answer on that.
Yeah,
fully agree, and that's the message we receive from our industry. Supportive, of course, regulation, stable over the time, but also coherent. Because if you have a research and innovation program investing in a certain area, but then a regulation that for whatever a reason stops the access to the market, and you have companies that have to develop their business outside Europe rather than inside Europe, that's a big problem. There is also the maturity of our sector. When you try to develop the new market of bioplastic, it is very risky because the market is under development. And indeed, we have also to fight with the price of oil. That's why you have not to do necessarily the simple copycat of what is done with oil-based product, but do more innovative product. But an innovative product is risky to put in the market because it's something completely new. So it's not only the money. I fully agree.
So Marinus, I mean, this is a question that has taxed us all through this year as we've started to talk about what new partnerships do we have? What areas do we want them to be in? How do we justify a partnership? And it really is something that we've worked on in our impact assessments, and Philippe and Bart will know that, as we've been testing them on, why did we actually need to invest in this area? Is there a market failure? We don't want to just be giving money to things that are working on their own. So I think you're absolutely right that it can be a difficult judgment. We don't want to waste the limited money that we have on things that are already going. But I really do think that in the hydrogen and bio-based area, this public funding is absolutely essential. And we've been through that. We've had a lot of studies on it to really see these are so small areas, so fragmented compared to the oil industry, the coal industry, and so on, that we really need to try and do it. But it is something that troubles us a lot. We're also looking at things like new partnerships in the area of digital. And as Anne was saying, digital is moving so fast. Are we really in the right area to do that with artificial intelligence and high performance computing? Again, we spend a lot of time worrying that we're getting it right. I don't know if we do, but that's certainly our aim. There we are, Simon. Yeah, thank you very much. You can publish some good stuff, I hope, in the paper tomorrow. So we're down to our last few minutes. Bart, do you have a last couple of comments in 2 minutes?
No, I think for me the main important will be now to work very closely with the Commission in order to set how we will work together in all these different partnerships. So for hydrogen particularly, it's now very important because hydrogen has a horizontal function. I mean, we helped heavy-duty transport, planes, maritime, trucks, everything. But also we have an heating and cooling area and big industry, steel and so on. So it's so horizontal, and we will need to work now with so many different partners. And I want to really work together with the Commission to set up a framework where we can really discuss, prioritize, and avoid double funding. I'm really worried about this because now hydrogen is now in all these different partnerships. Who will have the control? I mean, until now, 95% of all the projects were managed by the JU. That will change in future. And so how do we control that we make progress, that there is no double funding, there's no bureaucratic overlap, all these things? I made a proposal, and I think we have to really work hard on that, because only just the single basic act and the legal framework is very nice. We need to have that. But if we do not set up such a good functioning alignment and prioritization committee, or whatever we want to call it, we will fail altogether. And I think this is my main message. We need to work.
Okay, well, I'll also be reliant on my good colleague Alan Haig to work on this with you, and I know he'd be just as concerned as you are. Philippe, a couple of last comments, maybe.
Yes. So for the future, what will be very important for us, no need to tell you what the Green Deal is about, and the role which is expected from the Circular Bio-Based Europe, so the successor of the BBI. But we really need more than ever to align the agenda, because there are huge ambition, but that's important to build a sustainable bio-based industry in Europe. So we put the criteria at a higher level again than what it was in the past in terms of sustainability of the supply of the biomass, the biodiversity contribution to soil and water, so the link with the mission. But a joint undertaking remain, yes, an EU body, but an EU body with a limited resource. We can have a huge impact. We have proven that in the past. As Bart said up front, it's very important to set the objective and the action plan under Horizon Europe, and again, very important to align the agendas.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I'm really glad that I did decide to have this session in the end, because it was talking to you, but to other people as well. We really have to be innovative in what we're doing. We really do have to try to push the innovative ideas towards the market in your particular case, but it can also be towards public services as well in other cases. And I think that means looking at new ways of financing. It's looking at how thinking from the beginning about where we're going in the longer term. Not in every case. I mean, there's still scope for blue sky research. I know that, but in many of the things we do, we need to be thinking more strategically about where we want to end up with deployment, and then working back a little bit to the research agenda. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do with the strategic plan that many of you will have seen or been involved in. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do in the whole synergies debate, is not just to look from the point of research, what are we doing, but what do other people want from us? What can we really provide from them? And just scattering out hundreds of research results is really not going to be the answer to that. There's a whole question of dissemination, exploitation, which is in there, organization, governance, and things like this that come behind it. And that's certainly something I've got to work on, and me and my colleagues will do that. And this has certainly been inspiring for me, and that will, I think, give me some ideas, but also from time to time you need a bit of encouragement. You need to feel, a bit of enthusiasm for where you're going, and I think that's certainly done it for me. On the hydrogen valleys, I mean, I really excited about that and the possibilities there. I had a go at the last Research Innovation Days in the hydrogen water taxi, which is really good. We've seen the buses around. We've seen I know that there are vehicles out there collecting the rubbish in certain cities that you've financed. You're thinking, what a possibility! What a possibility! Is it the best one for every market? Well, that's what we're going to see. But certainly there must be possibilities. The electric ferry that was going in Denmark as well. All these things where we're bringing together different methods of finance, different ideas, really pushing the research plus the deployment together, I think is very exciting. In the bio-based area, I mean, as you say, you've got several factories now. They are working, they are producing the things that we want. And it's essential. It's essential in the way that we're doing it. It's essential to have this opportunity also to support rural areas, farmers, fishermen with perhaps another use for their product. So we're in the last 2 minutes. It's going to close automatically at 1 o'clock, so I have to finish off. Thank you very, very much to Bart and Philippe, and to Anne as well. She has some fantastic ideas, and she's got so much enthusiasm for what she's doing. Thank you very, very much to the people who listened into this, and I hope that we can all learn something from it, and it will push on with what we're doing over the next few years. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Thank you very much.
Paul.
Bye-bye.